Welcome back to the Bucks County Conservation District's Backyard Vegetable Gardening web series. In our last video, we chose the perfect site for a future garden, and today we're going to get started by building our very own raised garden bed. I'm going to be showing you the way I'm building my bed, the way it works best for me, but there are so many different materials and techniques you could also use to tailor it for your situation that I'll also show you. Everything depends on your budget, time constraints, and goals to consider. Let's get right into the video by starting with the supplies you're gonna need. For my raised garden bed, I chose each of the materials that I need separately so that I could customize it to exactly what works best for me, but there are also a wide variety of raised bed garden kits available to you, which are super convenient because they have everything you need all in one purchase. But the problem is it can be hard to find one that works best for your size, your goals, the plants that you're growing, and things like that. So sometimes it is beneficial to pick each of the materials individually. But these kits are really great. They come in a variety of different materials, sizes, and styles. There are some classic raised bed designs, such as this one here. You can also get elevated raised beds, which are really nice because they can help prevent back pains from bending over when you tend to the garden every day. And while most of these are made out of wood, you can also get some that are metal, plastic, and some other materials. And some kits are as intricate and beautiful as this one. Kits are a really great option for your first raised bed, but picking each of the materials yourself may work better depending on your space, budget, and goals. If you decide to build your own bed, here are some of the main things you'll need. First is obviously lumber, and it is so important to choose the right kind for your garden. The main things to make sure is that it will be safe for your food and the environment. One of the largest concerns over the use of lumber in gardens is when you use pressure-treated lumber. It is treated with a chemical preservative which helps it resist rot, making it last a really long time, especially in outdoor scenarios. This is really helpful in a variety of uses, but there are also health concerns in regards to the sawdust produced, wood burning, and contact with food, as well as environmental concerns with chemical leaching. Regardless, if you do choose to use pressure-treated lumber, it is so important to do your research and know how to limit the risks through the use of personal protective equipment and plastic liners to prevent that chemical leaching into the soil. If you do not use pressure-treated lumber, then there may be issues with the longevity of your garden as weather and natural processes cause the wood to rot and decay over time. The more rot-resistant the wood, the better, but most woods will need to be replaced after a few years in your garden, depending on the type of wood and the exposure that it receives. I am using Douglas fir planks that are 2 inches thick, 8 inches wide, and 8 feet long. I bought 6 planks and got 2 of them cut in half in store. I'm building a 4 foot by 8 foot raised bed, which is 2 planks high, coming out to 16 inches. So I needed 4 8 foot planks and 4 4 foot planks. In hindsight, I would have chosen 6 inch wide planks because of the garden planter blocks I used. These are stone bricks which have slots on the side for you to slide a wood plank into so you don't have to drill them together. I chose this option because I'm not the handiest, but you can absolutely drill your planks together instead. These blocks are made for 6 inch planks, but when I bought my lumber, I thought they were 8 inches. This really isn't going to make much of a difference, as I'll show you later how I'm going to work around it. So it really shows how making mistakes like that won't ruin your garden at all. I bought 8 garden planter blocks to stack 2 at each corner to get the height that I wanted. So you can build a shorter wall with 1 block or even go higher using as many as you want. You can also use them to section off your bed and make a wall in between it, as you can see in this photo. Next, I bought 2 rolls of 2 foot by 25 foot chicken wire with 1 inch holes. This will serve 2 purposes. One is for underneath the bed to protect from burrowing animals getting into the garden from below and eating all of your hard-earned crops. And the second roll is to use as a fence around the garden to keep other above-ground animals out. I also got 4 wooden fence posts to put in the hole of the planter blocks to secure the fence into. The most essential thing for your garden is healthy soil. Soil is one of Mother Nature's most valuable resources. It provides the structure and stability that plants need to grow and the nutrients and water for them to thrive. Getting and taking care of the perfect soil will really determine the success of your garden. 3 of the most important characteristics to the perfect soil is good nutrient and water holding capacity, adequate drainage, and high organic matter. Nutrient and water holding capacity is essential to feed your plants and make sure that the soil doesn't dry out too quickly. Things like peat moss and coir, which is coconut fiber, are really good sources of this. Next is good drainage. This ensures that your plants don't get overwatered and don't rot in sitting water. You can add things like sand or perlite to your mix in order to ensure good drainage. And the last thing is organic matter. This is really the most important. It is basically just decomposed plant and animal tissue in the form of compost. This is where all the good microbes, bacteria, and insects live to create that really healthy below ground ecosystem. Organic matter is so important to improve soil texture, quality, and fertility. You can make your own raised bed mix by combining a nutrient and water holding component like peat moss or coir, a drainage component like perlite or sand, and an organic matter component in the form of compost. This is really great if you do your own at-home compost using food scraps and leaf litter. This is an amazing way to repurpose food waste and to put those nutrients back into the earth to grow new food from. Although this is a pretty advanced step and not completely necessary, especially if this is your first garden, there are plenty of options of good quality raised bed soil mix that you can use. Today I'm going to be using Nature's Care organic raised bed soil mix, and this will be perfect for my garden. To know how many bags of mix you will need, you need to calculate the cubic feet of your bed by multiplying the length and width of your bed as well as the height you want your soil to be. For my 4-foot by 8-foot bed, I want 6 inches or a half foot of soil. So I multiplied 4 times 8 times 0.5 to get 16 cubic feet. This mix comes in 1.5 cubic feet bags, so I will need 10.67 or 11 bags of mix for my bed. A lot of the price for a raised garden bed is going to come from the soil simply because you need so much of it. For my bed, I spent $88 on soil alone at $8 a bag. Although it can be a little pricey, it's pretty important not to choose the cheapest option because in the long run, that can end up costing you more money as you need to add more amendments and fertilizers to really make sure that your soil is healthy enough to keep those plants healthy and thriving. The last thing you need is mulch. Mulch is so underrated, but such an essential for gardening. It can really help you cut down on some costs by adding a few inches of mulch in place of soil in your bed. Not only that, but it can help regulate the soil's temperature, maintain soil moisture, suppress weeds and pests, and also prevent soil erosion. When you get your mulch, you just want to make sure it's hardwood so it lasts longer and it doesn't have any dyes. The amount of mulch you buy is up to you. I bought 3 bags, each with 2 cubic feet, so that I could put about 1 inch of mulch on top of the soil and the rest below the soil to help with drainage and mainly to just reduce costs. Now that we have gone over the ins and outs of the supplies, it's time to get building. I'm going to start by removing some of the vegetation around where I want my bed to be. Make sure you're wearing long pants, a long sleeve shirt, and a hat if you're doing this to protect yourself from ticks, poison ivy, and other harmful insects and plants. As you can see, we just did a lot of hand weeding, weed whacking, pruning, raking, and shoveling. This is not only beneficial to increase the area available to build a garden, it also reduces the risk of pests coming into your garden by removing those habitats, and it helps slow the spread of weeds. It's also a good idea to prune trees and remove some vegetation to increase the amount of sunlight that hits your garden. Now that my area is clear, I'm going to measure out exactly where my bed will be and carve out a rectangle in the grass with a shovel as an outline. Then I'll shovel out the top inch of soil in the rectangle to make sure there aren't any grasses or weeds which will grow up into my garden. This step isn't completely necessary. You could absolutely just build your bed right on top of the grass, but you will have some more issues with weeding later on. This can also be a beneficial step if the ground isn't level. You can try and dig it out and make it as level as you can for your bed. Then I'm going to lay out the first layer of planter blocks and wood planks so that I can attach the chicken wire to it with a staple gun. Since the roll of chicken wire I have is 2 feet wide, I need to do 2 rows of it to cover the 4-foot width. As you will see later, I didn't take into account the extra length from the planter blocks, so there was space in the middle which we tried our best to fill with leftover wire. Once I'm finished stapling it to each side of the bed, I'm going to remove the planter blocks from each corner. Then with some help, we flipped the entire bed over so that the chicken wire was on the ground. We then put the planter blocks back and proceeded to stack the next layer of blocks and planks, completing the frame. Next, I'm going to show you another way you can prevent weeds, which is laying down cardboard before your soil. You can fill the entire bed edge to edge with cardboard so that no sunlight comes through, ensuring you are killing all the weeds underneath. Since I had shoveled out most of the weeds and grass earlier, I didn't cover the entire bottom. I mainly wanted to show you that you have options and you really only need to do one of the two, whichever you prefer, to help stop weeds. Once your cardboard layer is finished, you can soak it with water, which will help it biodegrade quicker. You also want to try and use cardboard with minimal stickers or print on it so that no unwanted chemicals or substances get into the soil above or below the bed. Next, I'm going to use half of my mulch, which is about 1.5 bags, to cover the bottom of the bed. After that, we emptied out all 11 bags of raised bed mix, spreading it evenly across the bed. And lastly, we used the rest of the mulch to cover the soil, completing the inside of the bed. The final step will be building the fence around the perimeter. I'm going to slide my 48-inch wooden fence posts into the outside slot in the planter blocks. You want to drive them about 6 inches into the ground. This will be a lot easier with a mallet, as you can see us struggling to do it with a hammer. Then I'm going to wrap the chicken wire around the bed, stapling it to the posts and the overhanging plank here. As you can see, my 4-inch error in planks allowed me to make a more stable fence, so it really didn't end up being a problem for me. My plan was to attach the wire to 3 posts and simply clasp it to the 4th so that I could open the fence when I need to tend to the garden so that I don't have to worry about leaning over it. But as you can see, we ran out of fencing, so we decided to just leave the last side open, and I'm going to make a makeshift door soon, which I'll keep you guys updated on. There's no one right way to build a raised garden bed. There's so many decisions you can make to personalize it every step of the way to ensure that it's the perfect bed for you. It may be intimidating, but it is honestly so simple and easy. I highly recommend just going to a local hardware store, telling them about the bed that you want to make, and they will be so willing to help you pick everything out. Also remember that you don't need to do it the way that I did, whether you use different wood or soil, or you opt to purchase a kit instead. Just do what feels best for you and your garden. Now that we have finished building our beautiful new raised garden bed, get ready because next week we're going to be picking the fruits, vegetables, and herbs we will grow this summer. Thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.